Welcome back. The federal government has announced the suspension of evaluation and accreditation of degree certificates from the neighboring Benin Republic and Togo. The ban came after an online newspaper's investigation exposed a Cotonou-based university that had given an undercover journalist a degree within 6 weeks. Now, according to the statement, the government lamented that some Nigerians deploy nefarious means and unconscionable methods to get a degree with the end objective of getting graduate job opportunities for which they are not even qualified. Now, the government noted that the suspension persists pending the outcome of an investigation involving the Ministries of Foreign Affairs and Education of Nigeria and the two countries, as well as the Department of State Security Services and the National Youth Service Corps. The ban's effect on genuine students in both countries is concerning. But however, NANS urges the federal government to reconsider, while the former NUC secretary highlights how some students resort to these schools when they don't pass UTME. This is worth examining in relation to the current state of education in Nigeria too. And joining us virtually, we have Mr. Uwem Owo and Dr. Ambrose Iboke. Good morning, gentlemen. Now, I'm going to start off with Dr. Ambrose Iboke. We've seen cases like this where we have students or Nigerians forge their certificates just because they want to either get a job or possibly go for the NYSC program. Now, tell me, how do you think that the suspension will impact the reputation of the universities in Benin Republic and also Togo? Bearing in mind that there are some schools, of course, in those places that, of course, that are genuine and not fake, that do not give fake certificates.
I would like us to trace the history of why Nigerians started going to Benin Republic of all places to get a tertiary education. We should remember that 30 years ago, who goes to Benin for that kind of stuff? When we're writing our JAMP and all those things, nobody goes to, when we're writing our UME, we used to call it those days, University Matriculation Exam, nobody goes there. But the rot in our education system, where students are necessarily delayed in finishing their degree because of insensate strikes, started making Nigerians looking for alternatives. For example, I know many people that withdrew when ASU went on strike for almost a full year, and many parents were looking for alternatives for their children. And they said those who cannot afford UK, who cannot afford Europe, Canada, or US, started looking for alternatives here, and some of them went to Ghana and some other African countries. And those who couldn't afford Ghana started looking for our neighbors, which are Benin Republic. And what happened was that the Benin Republic guys only had like one or two institutions, being a small country and a poor country, they didn't have many institutions. But when the influx of Nigerians started, a lot of Nigerians now started going to Benin Republic looking for them. So they were now overwhelmed. The few schools that were there were overwhelmed. And what we now started having was that Nigerians started, partnering with them to open distant, just like what we call distant campuses. I remember that 20 years ago, distant learning campuses in Nigeria became, very, very prevalent. And everybody was having a distant learning program in Lagos or Abuja or Port Harcourt, almost every school in Nigeria. When that was now closed down, NUC clamped down on that Nigerian distant learning that afforded people to go to school through part-time program. Then people started looking for alternatives, and the alternative for most people was Benin Republic. And what we now saw, because of the number, the business was too good for the Beninois, and what they now started doing was to now, having all kinds of universities or higher institutions springing up, mostly run with Nigerians, and coming here to advertise. There was a time when you open your social media, all you see is advertisement from Beninois schools, seeking for Nigerian admission. At that stage, most of them were still genuine, until, in the last 10 years, 12 years, we started having a multiplicity of dubious entities that were now masquerading as universities. Now, there's a failure on two sides. There's a failure from the government of Benin Republic. There's a failure from our own government through the Ministry of Education. Um, Before this investigation was done, there were grapevine, rumors, and they said there's no smoke without fire. That these things were going on. So the NYSC, the Ministry of Education were supposed to have contacted our own police and DSS so that they can have a relationship with the Interpol or whoever to investigate these things. But again, that is why journalism is the fourth estate of the realm, where issues like this were brought up and were investigated. That's why journalism like this have forced a lot of people to government to sit up. And that is a kudos to the young man that went into this to really bring this to the fore. Remember Watergate scandal in the US that forced Richard Nixon to resign, and so many other scandals that were exposed through the media. So this is what media is all about. This is what press, this is what journalism is all about.
All right.
And from now on, this suspension should be the searchlight should be moved to other institutions. And Nigeria should stop all the certificates coming from Benin Republic, or to be able to ascertain which ones are the genuine ones. And especially even Togo. These things are happening in Togo too.
Yes,
so this is a good move
yes,
in the right direction so that we can sanitize our system.
All right then. Well, we've been speaking with Dr. Ambrose Igboke, who is the chairman, Enugu State chapter of the Guild of Public Affairs Analysts. But we also have Uwem Owo, who is a public affairs commentator. Now, Uwem, let me come to you now. Good morning once again. Happy New Year to you. Before now, when you talk about certificate forgery, we would like for you to unmute your microphone so we can hear you actually. Now, certificate forgery, we had our own, what's the name now? The name just eluded me. Yes, Oluwale. We had our own Oluwale, where certificates were forged repeatedly. But now, Nigerians, because Oluwale had been exposed so terribly, Nigerians have found a way to seek certificates in from other climes. Now, one cannot also ignore the fact that we seem to place emphasis on certificates, especially certificates gotten outside Nigeria. Isn't this an anomaly that has landed us where we are today?
Well, thank you very much, and good morning. Happy New Year. I hope you can hear me very well, yeah?
We can barely hear you. I don't know if it's from your end or our end, but we'd like for you to speak up a little bit.
Okay, good morning. Happy New Year once again. You see, education in Nigeria is it's a funny thing now because when a country or a system pays more attention to certificates rather than excellence and quality of service, this is what you get. A situation whereby you go to apply for a job, and one of the prerequisites is that you must have so, and then they refuse. They neglect the fact that your skill, your ability to get this job done is even far more important. Now, I have experience here in where I am, in the city of Abuja, where you go to some establishments, and then you have people who are given huge responsibility because they have a bag full of various certificates. And then by the time they give them this responsibility, they can't live up to it. And before you know, the company will start looking for a replacement, and time and money has been wasted. I also have a direct experience where I had to recruit a few people for a certain job. It was an accounting job. I want to just tell you a story. I had several people who came to apply for this job. There was one that came from, Kaduna, and he had almost all the certificates of almost all the schools in Kaduna. And then I asked simple questions concerning his profession, and he couldn't answer. And yet he has certification to show that he is actually qualified for this. And eventually, who got the job was a very simple young lady who just graduated genuinely from school. Now, why am I bringing this story? I'm bringing this story because we have a system that lays emphasis on something that is not very important, which is paper. Okay, now by the time you now begin to force people that the only way you could get a good job is if you have a university degree, not even polytechnic, not all the other institution, a university degree. And then you have people who would be forced to go various miles to go get this. And of course, there are hawks in the names of university who are established in one-bedroom flats, and then they offer certificate just like that young man, just 6 weeks. A course that would have taken 4 years is taking 6 weeks to get a degree, and he's in NYC. Now, NYC has the responsibility to also affirm that whoever they give this their certificate or they admit into becoming a core member has a degree or a certificate from a known school. So it begs the question, what is going on in NYSC? Are they doing the right thing? Are the people who are supposed to be the people to check this thing, do they even have the right qualification by themselves? So our education system, it's actually, it needs an overhaul. I can't believe Benin Republic is a different territory entirely. Maybe the Benin people accept it, that's their own, but this is Nigeria that has its own standard. Okay, so how would somebody come from Benin Republic with a certificate and you don't even know the school? You don't even know the school, and then you admit such. I think there is a fundamental problem.
All right then. Well, we do know that you raised an issue. What I can pick up from it, we have this penchant for placing emphasis on university certificates as against polytechnics. Now there was a law. There was a law instituted in Nigeria to put them on the same pedestal, but for companies to recognize both of them. But we know that that has not been implemented, because if you go to certain institutions, certain agencies, and I'm going to focus on government agencies now, there is a level that an individual with an HND cannot go beyond, and there is a level that an individual with a PSC, goes above. That plays out in government agencies. What do you think is the problem? Now, this is going to Great Imo, because we do understand that Great Imo has joined this conversation as well. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Good morning to our viewers. And compliments of the season.
Compliments to you as well.
Go ahead, please. If I may contribute, please. The first thing I need us to establish is that society falls and rise on the altar of leadership, and I will continue to repeat this. Society rises and falls on the altar of leadership, especially in the last year, 2023. Nigeria was on air, at home, abroad, everywhere, discussing fake certificates, forged documents, forged digital service certificates by governors, by those contesting presidential elections. Even at a time, 3 people contesting for the Senate presidency of Nigeria, all on trial for criminal case. They are on trial for criminal activities, whatever that is. Let me tell you, it has gotten to a point. We tribalize our problems, we religionize our problems, we begin to sympathize with those who have constituted this problem, those who have destroyed the image of the institutions that are supposed to help to nip these things in the bud. To the extent that somebody was telling me once concerning that of governor of Enugu, whose history shows that there won't be a way he would have been in the service about the same time, be a political appointee, and other things he was supposed to be doing at that time show that there's no way he was in the service of the Nigerian Youth Service Commission. And not because he did not graduate, not because he's not brilliant, not because he's not an achiever, not because he does not have the capacity to govern the state. But the singular problem there was that once that line of item was included as a pre-qualification, every other sentiment should be thrown out. Any other sentiment should be thrown out. We saw the drama with Chicago. Today, we don't want to discuss it because, well, we have to move on. Hence, when we begin to hear about Nigerians who go to Benin and other countries to go and acquire papers, not certificates, you begin to wonder, are we not actually swimming in the same pool? For me, actually, it's no longer a news. I will not lie to you. The second problem is the ignorance that is prevalent here in Nigeria and Africa. Today, many people see certificate as a meal ticket, because over the years, because of corruption, because of failure of governance and system of societal construct, people simply acquire certificate to get a civil service job and steal their way to the top, retire as directors, as billionaires, while the society is rotting away. But what is education? The Latin word edus simply means self-development. Hence, in Nigeria, many people are literate, but they are not educated. What we think is education is because some people can speak Queen's English, some speak in American accent, and some of us can simply speak in Nigerian accent. We can read or write, hence we are classified as educated, but that is not true. If you can read and write Hausa, if you can read and write Yoruba, if you can read and write English, if you can read and write Igbo, if you can read and write English, you are literate. But the word edus means having knowledge for solving human problems. So with all these certificates, Nigerians can build their own bridges. Prisoners with primary and secondary school certificates from China are building the bridges and the railways that our professors in engineering are riding on. Hence, I query the kind of education we have here. It is a total failure. Nigeria education is not fit for purpose. We are not educating our children towards solving the problems of Nigeria. We cannot extract and manage our oil. We cannot build our roads. We cannot, block our erosion gullies. We cannot build our skyscrapers. We can't build our computers. We are simply acquiring papers in the name of education. We can simply speak English, speak in different accents, and people will clap for us, yet we don't have knowledge for solving human problems. That is why some people who are governors, senators, have PhD, they have professorial certification, they don't even simply have common ideas for solving hunger in Nigeria. Therefore, I don't see them as educated, I see them as literate. I went into Unilag. When I get an admission into Unilag, in my first year, we had a visiting lecturer, Phil Osage, who was into corporate communications. And he convinced us about something. Yeah, everybody is there to acquire certificate. But you can concentrate right now and be a professional in something. And I asked then, what was this profession? He says the public relations consultant. And he has made so much impact. He was imbued with so much knowledge. I began to have passion for that. And after I stepped away from Unilag to go and do professional exam that require actually 4 years for participating in exam, but you can do the executive and pass the course. Okay. And from there, you can actually engage with a UK university for 2 years to earn your master's, but you didn't require to be on campus, but you required to go there and write exams. So distant learning was not the problem. What is missing is the trust and the reason for which people are acquiring certificate, because it is not focused on acquiring knowledge. Hence, what we term as education are simply looking for meal tickets in the Nigerian standard, looking for what accents in the Nigerian standard, and at the same time looking for reputation, but not knowledge for solving human problems. Hence, we have dovetailed into this argument and discourse on a national television that have become embarrassingly institutionalized crisis in Nigeria.
All right, thank you, Mr. Great. Now, Dr. Ibuke, do you think the government should investigate universities to ensure that within Nigeria there's not going to be fraudulent certificates?
Yeah, you see, I'm a root cause analyst. I like finding out what costs this, what led us to where we are today. And I keep saying that it is the somersault of our policies that led us where we are. Firstly, education is important. Certification is important. Formal education is actually the first step to really getting a country, a citizen, to be on the right path. And now that is why in Nigeria before, we had carpentry, mechanics, plumbing, and all kinds of artisanship as part of our curriculum in education. That is why we had schools those days called GTCs, government technical colleges. That is why we had monotechnics. That is why we have polytechnics. That is why we even have basic, even the schools, secondary schools that do the general course that are not dedicated to technical college. We have a lot of artisan course subjects and practicals. That was when Nigeria had an inclusive education. And that is when we were properly regulated. But what has happened over the years is that Nigeria lost focus of an integrated system of education and focused just on academics alone and forgot the technical training that they used to impact on students. And that is what is a deliberate attempt, because we're just copying we're just taking curriculum that are designed by some foreign countries to make sure that we are not very educated in terms of knowledge. And that is how we lost all our industries. We lost our power plant, we lost the steel plants and the automotive plant and many other textile industries and the rest. Now, coming to the sad reality, and because Nigeria was focused on certification, people wanted to get educated. And mind you, getting educated in Nigeria makes you have opportunities even beyond Nigeria. So imagine how many Nigerians that have left when they have degree in Nigeria, they go to overseas to have their masters and they become and fly from there, So Nigerian education is not just for getting job here. It also opens the vistas of opportunities for people to actually make their lives better. But I think what we got it wrong was that the secondary schools in Nigeria were turning out large numbers of people every year, every academic year. A lot of them were writing the senior school certificate examinations and writing the university matriculation examination, even the polytechnic. Now they have merged it together, UTMEs. And the volume of numbers of people writing the UTMEs and the volume of, let me say, public universities that is affordable to most people were not commensurate, were not adequate. The proportion was far below. So they had to start rationing, where just like 30 to 40%, not even up to 50% of those who write JAM every year are actually admitted in university because there are no space. There are no spaces to be for the admission. So to augment that, a lot of the schools, like 21 years ago, 20 years, came up with distant learning programs to augment. And then Nigeria also reactivated the National Open University. But what has happened was that there was a lot of abuse in the distant learning program. Instead of the NUC and the Ministry of Education to find ways to strengthen it and make it work, What do we do? As usual in this country, we just give a blanket ban. We just banned it. It is not correct to just have banned these distant learnings. You should have, the NUC and the Education Ministry should have found ways to ensure that they are standardized rather than banned. Let me tell you something. I have a PhD today in mass communication. I was a product of distant learning program in Lagos of the University of Nigeria and Togo. We used to have our lectures in Lagos and then go to write our exams in the University of Nigeria in Nsukka in Enugu State. And we did everything correctly. And we were awarded our certificate by the faculty, by the Senate of the University of Nigeria and Togo. So if a program like that could work and be authentic and work well, that means distant learning can work well in Nigeria. So I don't know the reason why the NUC had to ban that. And because of that ban, because of that blanket ban that was placed on that, it's opened, Nigerians were desperate to acquire education. And in the process when you acquire education, you acquire certification. So unless we now see ways of making sure that our education system, you know, be able to admit all the, or at least 80% of the people who are seeking admission into higher institutions, there's the desperation for getting into school will continue. And that is what landed our people going to Oluwole, going to you know, Benin Republic, Togo, and all those places. Now let me even have a distinction between Oluwole and what is happening in Benin Republic. Oluwole is forgery. You know, you go forge certificates and forge certificates of schools and then use it to present as passing it up as if it is you went to school. That is even a different, that is pure forgery taking place there. But what is happening in Benin Republic is not actually forgery. What is happening about it is a new high, a new level of criminality that was not being envisaged before now, where the schools themselves are actually involved. It will shock you that not all the schools are in one bedroom flat. It will shock you that some of these schools are actually established,
yes,
are actually accredited,
yes,
and actually known by the Republic of Benin institutions.
Absolutely.
Some of them are actually authentic schools. But because of the desperation to make money, criminal gangs inside the school actually now give you genuine certificates from the school. They backdate your admission, they forge the admission process, they call you, you even have a transcript where you are scored over the years. All these things are backdated and made perfect, and then presented to you, approved by the Senate of the school. So it's a cartel. It's a cartel of that have an admixture of genuine institutions and the fake ones. That is where it gets more complicated.
All right then.
So if you find out, you know, so what Nigeria needs to do now is to start to see why our people, because when you check the number of students of this fake university in the Benin Republic, 90% of them are Nigerians. So the question to ask is why are our people running to get certificates from others? What is wrong with our own education system? That is the root cause analysis we need to start you know, looking at and addressing, to stem the tide of our people going there. And that is why they are charging our bill. We are wasting foreign currencies going there and doing nothing. And the Federal Minister of Education should stop pretending as if they didn't know this existed. So there should be probe in all fronts. The Minister of Education should be probed. The NYC itself should be probed. NUC, and then we can have an Interpol collaboration to also bring justice to the universities that are perpetrating this thing in those countries.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Igboke. There, Dr. Igboke is calling for a probe into relevant agencies, but it goes beyond probing now. Let's look at the consequences of some of these certificates, because it has been revealed. The young man that went ahead to dig into this applied for a course in December 2022, and by February, he had gotten a certificate. Now we have issues, we have cases where professionals like nurses are getting certificates that quickly, all right? And these are people that will come back and get employment in health institutions and cater to lives of people. This seems very scary. So let me come to Uwem Owo. Now, how scary does this even get? And what are the consequences? And if government is going to probe and scrutinize and dig up those that have defaulted, how deep do you think this should go?
Thank you very much again. I think it should go a lot deeper and deeper because the system is so rotten. Okay, one of the problems that we are going to have, especially in the medical profession, you hear stories of scissors being forgotten in somebody's body because of half-baked doctors. You have building collapse because you have half-baked civil engineers. You have all these kinds of people, even in those in civil service, who cannot discharge their responsibilities because they do not have the requisite knowledge. Though they have the requisite certificate, but not the knowledge to actually get this done. So Nigeria now falls into the hands of messy people. And one of such problems stems from the issue of nepotism. Why did I say nepotism? Nepotism in the sense that people who are qualified do not get the job. And if I have an uncle or a brother or a father in a position of authority, whatever I present to them, even if I'm qualified, I'm not qualified, even if I don't even want the job, he will force it on me. And then that is where we have this problem. So until Nigeria understands that governance is about service delivery to the people. It's not about a system whereby let me put this my family member there so that he will continue to take care of the family. Is the person qualified for the job? And if this is the case, you have a situation whereby you apply for a job, and for you to get a good job, they tell you, you must go and get a so certificate in so thing. Let me give you a little instance here. Now, you have an uncle who is a director in a medical in a hospital. Now, he has a nephew that he wants to bring in to replace him. And he doesn't care if this nephew of his has interest in medicine or not. They will pressurize that young man or that young lady to go get certificate, and the person will go get certificate and become a medical doctor. Does he or she have the passion for that? No. And this is everywhere. Of course, we hear of the case of the central bank. We hear of the case in NNPC where you have children of politicians manning important positions, and if you go to these offices, they are always short. Nobody is there. And then this office is supposed to discharge responsibility. You see where the problem is in Nigeria? It's so deep.
It's deep indeed. Very, very
it's
deep.
So deep. Does it mean that we don't have great people in Nigeria that are educated in Nigeria? I want to bet all of us on this platform now got their educations here in Nigeria. You get what I'm saying?
Oh, yes.
But if we had a good education here in Nigeria, we have Nigerians who are educated here and have gone abroad and are preferred because they are well educated. It's just that home here, our system, our governance system is the problem. It's not the individual.
All right then. Let's get a view from
from Mr. Great Imo. You mentioned that Nigerians pay more attention to certificate and that scale is more important. But moving to Nigeria now, we have, they say charity begins at home. We have here in Nigeria, people sell certificates, forge certificates, and a lot of other things that happen in Nigeria, which people are aware of these things. Coming down to presidency, we know for you to participate in an election, you have to have, even if it's school certificate, school leaving certificate, yeah? So now, what do you think that Nigeria, are we not supposed to start from the home front to start tackling these issues rather than stating a ban already on Benin and Togo when we have these things happening in Nigeria?
You're right. We're supposed to start on the home front. But let me say something. I will say this unequivocally, and I want it to be on record. The last presidential and National Assembly elections in Nigeria actually exposed a whole lot. I mean, I don't mean that the paper called the certificate is more important than knowledge. I have always advocated knowledge required for solving human problem comes first. But why certificates are given is to authenticate that knowledge. So that people, as we are old, he has this knowledge. But that notwithstanding, you're supposed to bring that knowledge to bear in the job. But now people make the paper, the certificate, the priority. And hence, when it comes to issues of qualification for elections and all that, where they don't have the authentic, they begin to, begin to look for all manner of stuff to present. But now what was so disheartening is that on the basis of tribe, on the basis of religion, we saw both Christians and Muslims in this country defending the indefensible, defending criminality on the grand scale. Just like Mr. Uwem has said, out of nepotism, people argue from the sense of tribalism, religion, and all manner of shenanigans, yet it is coming back to haunt all of us. The insecurity, everything. So the problem tackling from whole front is that we must throw away the sentiment, tribal, religion, ethnic, whatever sentiment, even partisan, political sentiment that make us align with somebody irrespective of his criminal records, but because we think it will favor us, we end up messing everybody up. And the implication is this: once such characters mount the saddle of leadership, they begin to permeate what they represent because they want to have many other people like themselves who can understand what they are and be able to go along with them. Otherwise, they cannot operate in an environment where they are sandwiched between those who understand and those who stand, exonerated from this reality. That is why, look at what is happening at the National Assembly. The governors and the federal.
We are pressed for time. We are pressed for time, Mr. Imo. So we'll have to, pause this conversation there. There's a whole lot to talk about. All right. I was even going to talk about how there is a benchmark if you graduate. I mean, companies want to employ from 23. If you go beyond a certain age, if you get to 27, 28, it becomes even difficult to get employment. But then we know that strikes prevent Nigerian students from graduating on time. So there's a lot to talk about when you talk about the educational system in Nigeria and the rot that has eaten deep. But we are out of time for this topic, but we're going to stay on education as we go into another topic. Now, we will take a very quick break. When we come back, we'll be talking about the UK ban on Nigerian students and students from overseas countries from bringing dependents into the UK. We'll be back in a bit.
When your morning starts